Welcome back to Bull vs. Bear, the channel where we steer through the markets with a steady hand, or at least try to. I'm Clev and your optimistic bull, ready to sail in today's topic.
And I'm Chip, your skeptical bear, here to throw the anchor when needed. Today, we're boarding Carnival Cruise Lines, once the king of the seas, but is it smooth sailing ahead or just more choppy waters?
With a post-pandemic rebound, rising travel demand, and some questionable debt baggage, Carnival's story is one to watch. Can it steer back to profitability, or is it sinking under its own weight?
Grab your life jackets, because we're diving deep into Carnival's numbers and plotting the course for its stocks. Let's get to it.
All right, Chip. Before we talk sailing, let's look at the little portfolio here, bud.
Okay.
Chip, this doesn't look exactly the same as last time we saw it. What happened?
It sounds like the Federal Reserve made an announcement.
Oh, did they? Was it this guy, Chip?
Wow.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's his fault specifically. This is the same Federal Reserve chairman that prevented us going into a recession after the pandemic.
Listen, we only look at what you've done good recently. We don't talk about the things that you did well years ago.
I mean, it was just like 2 years ago he saved our economy.
I'll tell you what I've learned. The market has a short-term memory. And what
Okay.
I do know is he dropped he did a quarter point base cut, right?
Okay.
And we projected next year we were going to get three more cuts, right?
Okay.
Well, at his press conference, he said we're probably only going to get two, and I don't think that's what really made the market go crazy and just start selling off. I think what made the market sell off was he said we can't rule out the possibility of increases either, though.
Well, that is the truth.
Well, sometimes I think sometimes it's better just to lie to people in the stock market. I wish he would have just done that, and I think our week would have been a lot better.
Are you trying to imply investors have the emotional intelligence of teenagers?
No, less than teenagers.
Okay.
Like a 5-year-old, right, that hasn't had their nap time yet and is always on the edge of having fun
Yep.
or just going completely ballistic. That's where they literally stay.
They just exist in that space.
They live there permanently.
Wow.
So over the last week, 10.5% Chip, 25 grand down.
That does hurt. That hurts to see.
Last month, 35 grand down,
Jesus.
13.9%.
Do you know what the median income of the average American is today in 2024? Did you
Um,
lose that in 1 month?
we're probably on track for that. Now, I've done some self reflection. I think I
Okay.
made some mistakes, Chip.
Tell me.
I think I panic sold last week. Now
Mm,
we had the Fed crash the market on Wednesday essentially.
sure.
Thursday we rebounded a little bit, but nowhere near enough. And then Friday it looked like we were going to go to a government shutdown, and all of the pre-market numbers were horrific. It looked like it was going to be a bloodbath on Wall Street. Um, Everything was tanking, and I think I sold during the tank, and that might have been a terrible mistake.
Is
But I
the
think
market open on Christmas Day?
it is not open on Christmas Day, so I can't lose any money on Christmas Day.
Okay.
But I think I sold during a freak out moment, and I shouldn't have done that. So we won't do that again. We're gonna be
Sure.
more steadfast. You know, I went from being a bull to a scared little bear.
Well, a bear isn't a bad thing. I don't think a bear means you sell at the first decrease. I would argue that a bear invests consistently and ignores market fluctuations. I think it's a very bull thing to do to be freaked out by a very minor
Well,
variation in the market.
so when I was looking at the market Friday morning before it opened, I'll be honest, I think I put myself in maybe a little bit worse position. So I'm also using, margin on my account, which is essentially a loan.
Right.
So I was watching the numbers, and based on how the market was going to open, I think I was going to put myself in margin call territory,
Oh, okay.
which I was doing the
Okay.
math. I think I was going to need to put 30K extra into the account.
Okay.
So that freaked me out a little bit too, because these options were all going to be so far in the red because of how far like the market was coming down. Now everything rebounded mostly. That didn't happen, but we we still got nervous about it. So going forward, we're going to use less margin, so we don't have to be put in that position.
Mhm.
I still think margin is a really powerful tool, and it's something we're going to talk about in a future episode. But I don't think I should have been using as much as I was. So hey,
Okay.
listen, you learn some lessons, right?
Yep. And Clevin, you'll have to remind me how how margin and margin calls typically work. Margin in this instance is a temporary. I mean, it's a loan from your Robinhood in this instance, correct?
From your brokerage, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And I think they're charging me like 5.25%, for the loan.
And
Uh,
then what happens is
and
if you exceed a certain position, Robinhood gets a little nervous and requires you sell your positions to reimburse them their loan.
yeah, so if all of your assets start tanking, there's a certain dollar amount. If you lose a certain amount, they will make you add more money. And if you don't add more money, they can actually start selling off your positions, stocks, options. They can start selling them off, which really just means you're locking in those losses permanently, right? Um, this is kind of what I did last Friday on some assets. So you don't want to sell off when you're negative. But we'll talk about margin in a future episode. Let's talk about Carnival Cruise Lines.
Okay.
So I have one option for Carnival Cruise Lines. Let's look at their stock. The Carnival just had earnings on Friday morning.
Okay.
So right here on you can see this is right before the Fed meeting, 2 p.m. And then the Fed literally sank Carnival Cruise Lines. We went from 25.91 to 24.58. Carnival did not like what the Fed had to say, as did the rest of the market.
This was a sort of situation where Jerome Powell looked you in the eyes, Clevin, and said, "He's the captain now."
That's what Jerome Powell said. That
Mm.
I'm the Grinch and your Santa Claus rally's not happening. So Carnival did rebound back,
No kidding.
and then Friday morning came around and it started tanking with the rest of the market. It did bounce back, and then earnings happened. So right here is right about earnings. Carnival just shoots back up.
Wow.
Carnival actually has some fantastic numbers. I mean, their price to earnings ratio is 18.6. That's really good. You're usually generally looking for like under 20. This is really good. Um, they've The other good thing about Carnival, and this kind of applies to the other two really large cruise lines. You have Royal Caribbean, which is kind of the mega daddy of cruise lines, and then you have Norwegian. Those are like the
Mm.
three big ones. There's more demand for cruises than they can keep up with. Kind of a good industry to be in, right?
Okay.
You can never supply all the customers because there's just so many that want to cruise, right?
Interesting.
Now,
And can you walk us through like how a cruise? You've been on cruises, right?
oh yeah, I love cruises. Best vacation.
And have you been on a Carnival cruise before?
No, I've only been on Royal Caribbean.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but I will say generally they're all generally somewhat the same. I would say Carnival tends to skew to a younger crowd, more of a party crowd because it's cheap. It's cheaper to get to a Carnival cruise line.
Okay.
Royal Caribbean also has the world's largest ships,
Mm.
and they are the largest cruise line in the stock market. Let me see. Yeah, I mean their market cap is 64 billion, and Carnival is 33 billion. So they're almost double Carnival. And something's crazy. I'm gonna pull up the Royal Caribbean chart here, but where would you say how low do you think this stock got during COVID, Chip?
Oh boy. So I remember distinctly hearing like nightmare stories where cruise lines would like a cruise ship would be stuck at port and couldn't disembark passengers because somebody on the ship had COVID. Uh, I can imagine that was a nightmare. 50, what do you, maybe like 50% the value it is today?
240 right now. So you think it was down to what, 120?
Yeah, I could see that. Ooh.
So Or you can see right here, this is right before COVID, January 17th. This
Mhm.
is right around the time the Chinese reports started coming out about the virus.
Okay.
And then all the way down here,
Jesus.
$23.
That hurts.
Chip, why didn't we invest in Royal Caribbean during this time?
Probably because it was weeks away from going out of business.
You're not wrong. They were actually there was a lot of loans they had to take.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it look at it. It's kind of been a behemoth since then, though. Just constantly, bringing itself back. Had a little bit of everybody kind of fell off during 2022. We had a little bit of like market pullback,
Hmm.
and then they just, I mean, look at them. I mean, constantly moving up over the last 4 years.
Jeez.
So there's a couple things going on with cruise lines, right? One,
Hmm.
there's more people that want to cruise than they can support, right? There's only a certain number of ships in the world,
Yep.
so they can only fill a certain. They can only, they don't have capacity for everybody right now. Also, there's about a 2 year delay between because generally in the past they would build ships and they would just keep building ships. During COVID, they stopped building all ships. They took a hiatus. Didn't
I
seem
see.
like didn't seem like there was much point building ships when people weren't cruising, right?
Sure. Sure.
So there was about a 2 year gap where they didn't really build anything. So technically, the overall cruise market is about 2 years behind on the ships they should have, which is why there's so much demand and not enough supply.
Hmm.
They're still building the cruise ships now, but there's only about 4 ports in the world that can build these ships. I mean, these ships are massive.
I see.
They're small cities.
Right. I'm actually looking at on Statista. I'm looking at their Carnival's operational expenses from 2008 to 2023, and in 2019, you see that they spent. I believe that other ship operation is their ship construction spend, and it looks like they spent up to $2.9 billion in 2019 on ship development, and they haven't spent a dime since then. So for 3 4 years, they haven't spent any money on ship development, ship construction.
Yeah, and I think all of the cruise lines kind of made deals with the companies that were building the ships that they would
Mm.
allow them. They would keep building. They would build them basically and agree to get paid back in the future.
Oh, interesting.
So kind of a loan situation with we'll build the ships for you now, you pay us back later. Because I mean, I'll be
Yeah, what do
honest,
they do?
like right before as COVID was happening, like a lot of these a lot of these companies were going to go bankrupt. I mean, the, for 2 years they really had no business, but they still had to pay for all their ships. They had to pay for people on the ships. Then they had to get everyone all of their employees back to the ships, which isn't cheap. Get everybody trained up again. I mean, it was a massive undertaking, but it is a very cash. It's a cash intense business. They get a lot of cash from their customers. I mean, people come on these ships and they spend tons of money. The best thing you can do is get someone on the ship at a low rate because you're going to upsell them on, picture package, excursions. You go to a port and they charge you $150 to go on a Jeep adventure that costs them $25.
What would you
That's what.
say is the as in like a comparison for
Mhm,
somebody? I've never been on a cruise. You've been on a cruise.
mhm.
How would you describe what's the closest analog to that you could describe a cruise ship to somebody who's never been on it? Is it like a theme park or is
Kind
it
of
a
like a
hotel?
kind of like a resort, I would say.
Uh,
A resort and it depends on what. Some of the smaller Carnival ships probably aren't going to have the same amenities as a larger Royal Caribbean ship. Some of these Royal Caribbean ships can have go-karts in them. They have full water parks. They have carousels, arcade. I mean, they just have everything.
and you have to
Some
pay for those experiences. So
no,
like I pay for my
all
ticket.
all that stuff's free. All that's
Oh,
free. All of your most of your 80% of your food is free. There are some specialty restaurants that you can pay extra for, but I think I've been on 8 cruises. I've maybe paid for 3 specialty restaurants in my life.
I see.
And then generally I just eat like in the main dining room or the buffet. They have tons. It's not like there's just one option for food. There's tons of options. Cruising can be one of the best budget experience vacations you can have because you get so much bang for your initial buck. But now, like I said, you can spend a lot more money. I mean, these companies are in the business of making money, and they do it very well. You know, they have a every cruise ship has a casino on it.
Mm.
That's
And
that's not just because they want you to, they want to make money. This is the business, right? They know they get you on cheap with the cheaper ticket, and then you're stuck on a cruise ship for a week. And a lot of people like to gamble.
can I buy okay, so they've got gambling.
Yep.
So we're in international waters, right? So that no laws, right? Gambling.
Yep.
Tell me about drug consumption. Can I get some cannabis on this cruise ship?
No drugs. No, especially
Drugs.
a lot of the Caribbean ports have like zero tolerance for drugs, so there's no drugs. Alcohol is huge business, and that's probably, they have drink packages.
Okay.
Say you want a drink package. This is where they really get a lot of people. Is if you want a drink package, you can have unlimited alcohol for the cruise. It costs you $150 a day per person.
$150 a day.
Yeah, and a lot of people get that drink package because they don't want to think about it. They just want to show their. You just show the guy your card, and they can make you any drink you want all day long.
You'd have to drink like 2 bottles of Grey Goose a day.
There's actually a calculator somewhere online where it shows you how much you need. I think it's like 15 drinks a day to break even on it or something. And I'm telling you, I think there's some people that are probably coming close to that.
Jesus.
It was kind of interesting. Royal Caribbean recently released one of their newest ships. I think it was the Icon of the Seas. And on the ship, they had a gold, like a solid gold cup, and it had diamonds and stuff on it. $100,000 for this gold cup, right?
Okay.
And the other perk with it was if you bought this cup, you got the drink package for life.
Who's buying $100,000?
Listen,
gold
I
cup?
was thinking about it, right? If you're 18 years old and you get that drink package for life, it might be worth $100,000.
Well, you can't drink for 3 years.
That's a good point. All right, but I think it includes like Starbucks and like sodas. So it's a good point you made, though. If you're 21, it might be worth it.
No, I
rest of
don't
your
think
life.
so. This is
Listen,
a dumb idea.
You know what? A little off topic, but do you remember back in the day? I think it was Southwest. I don't know, one of the airlines. They had a deal where if you spent, I think it was $250,000 or $500,000, you got free first class flying for you and one guest for life.
Okay.
I think Mark Cuban famously bought this, and people who bought it have made so much more money on it off of flying. Like, think about it. You could fly for the rest of your life for first class.
On Southwest?
I don't know if it was Southwest. I can't. Maybe it was Delta. I don't know.
Maybe Delta.
Well, it is one of the airlines. But like, think about it. If you take 2 cruises a year, right?
Yep.
And you spend, I mean, 150. So what's 150 times 7? You're talking $1,000 a cruise, right? On drink package.
Yeah.
You're talking $2,000 a year, but you got to add inflation. It's gonna get more expensive, right? But even if you do 2,000 times 50 years, that's 100,000 right there, and that's not counting inflation.
That's true, but I'm going to the investor.gov. It's my favorite website. I'm typing in $100,000 with no monthly contribution, with a lifespan of, let's say, 35 years, at an estimated interest rate of 7%.
But
you want to know how much money that's worth by the time you retire?
Before you tell me, does it come with a gold encrusted jeweled cup?
I'll tell you what. If there's an 18-year-old listening to this video,
you don't think they should buy the cup? Is what you're saying?
Watching this channel, and you have the option to spend $100,000 on a cup, or invest it in a mutual fund or an ETF, I will personally give you a gold encrusted cup after 35 years if you would rather invest it in the market. And if you think you made the wrong decision when you finally retire, I'll give you the gold cup. But if you think you made the right decision, let me keep the gold cup. I'll put it towards something else. You will have made $1,067,658 had you decided to not buy that stupid fucking cup.
Okay, maybe we don't buy the cup then. That's a lot of money. But somebody bought the cup, by the way.
Of course they did.
And you know what? It's probably an old person. They're not going to get the value out of it. But yeah.
No.
Who am I? Let's look at
Wealth
Carnival's.
Is wasted on the old.
Let's look at Carnival's over the last year. Over the last year, they're up 44%. And really, since the summer, August, they've really been tearing up. I mean, But this company, I mean, they're making a lot of money. They're, like I said, their price to earnings is really good. Um, I, they're really since COVID, boy, look at them. They really took it.
Jesus, that's a tough one to see, man.
Oh my gosh, they got down to 850. That's insane. Look at this. Look at their pre-COVID numbers though. They got killed during COVID. They still haven't even rebounded to where they were at. Royal actually rebounded to where they were at pre-COVID.
Weren't people dying on these cruise ships during the pandemic?
Some, but people were dying everywhere. In fairness,
That's fair.
but yeah, I think Carnival is actually. I feel like they're kind of undervalued right now. I don't feel like their current stock price is where they should be at.
Interesting.
Um, I
And
think
what's your investment in this position right now?
So I have an option. So I have one option. Let's take a look at it. So I have an option that expires February 21st.
Okay.
It's a call option for 25 contracts, so 2,500 shares.
Okay.
My break-even price is 27.05. Currently, it's sitting at 26.81.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I'm actually feeling really good about this. I've got basically 2 months for this thing to keep moving up. And I mean, right now we're already up 12.50. So 12.5%.
Okay, and the inauguration is obviously between now and then, and this is a U.S. based company, and I'm looking at their.
Not U.S.
Oh, it
based.
isn't.
No, none of the cruise lines are U.S. based.
Really?
For tax reasons. But
oh.
yes, they're all like sailing out of Morocco or some small flag company that or country that doesn't tax them very much. So they're all.
Me too.
But they all, but none of them qualified for like any of the loans during COVID. That was one big problem is they couldn't get any money from the federal government. They had to get they had to all get funding from other sources. But I also think that's one of the things that's going to help them long term is they didn't have to pay back the U.S. government. They're paying back I think in a lot of cases they took out some personal loans against the company, but they also took loans out against their ships because they do have a lot of assets. I mean, these ships are behemoths and they're billions and millions of dollars. So they took out loans against the ships, which I don't think they're gonna have any problem paying back. Like I said, they print cash every cruise. It's just printing money. And fuel is very cheap right now.
Can you imagine giving a loan to a cruise ship company and then having to collect on that collateral, and you're the owner of
I'm gonna need you to park that right over there by that island, please.
I'm looking at their revenue breakdown and Royal. Wait, what is this? Yeah, Carnival Corporation and PLC generates 68% of its revenue from North America. Is Canada a big cruise country, or is it mostly just the U.S.?
A lot of people cruise from Canada. Yeah, I mean, actually, I think cruising is kind of like. I think Europe's really big. Actually, Asia is becoming a much bigger market. It's interesting. I know. I had dinner with one of the captains on Royal Caribbean at one point, and he told me for the Royal Caribbean ships they had out in Asia, they actually had to reconfigure the ship slightly. They had to make the casino 2 levels because out in Asia they like to gamble so much they needed more space in their casinos.
Interesting, and I assume that's a very profitable component of business.
Oh yeah, very profitable. People that are drinking a lot and gambling, what could go wrong? So I think we're gonna hold this until February 1st. We let this go. One thing I think I've been doing with my options is holding them too long. So we're not gonna hold this too long. February 1st, 21 days before expiration, we're gonna let this go. And we're gonna look before we wrap up. I want to look at one of my options that I have here, SoFi.
SoFi.
So I have had this option for a month and a half.
Yep.
At one point, I was up about $7,000 in this option. Right now, we're down $250 in this option. What went wrong, Chip?
Probably should have sold a little earlier.
Maybe
held on a little too long.
So what's the downside of holding on too long, right? Because in my mind, I was like, I'll just keep holding on, and the closer we get to the expiration date, it'll just keep going up more and more and more and more, right?
Right.
But then what happened? What happened?
Jerome Powell probably saved our economy again.
Sure. Jerome Powell, he freaked out the market, and SoFi But SoFi does not like does not want interest rate increasing because it affects their loan business. I mean,
Sure.
if you look at SoFi, this is right 2 p.m. Jerome Powell starts speaking. Look at that drop. I mean, we literally just fall off a cliff thanks to him. So,
Well, not specifically thanks to him,
well,
but
yeah.
also thanks to SoFi's predication on giving predatory loans to children.
Oh, we like SoFi. We're big fans, big fans.
I mean, I'm an investor. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, we have to be honest about it.
But I think for call options, I think what my issue with call options was I was holding them like I was trying to collect Pokemon until the very end. I think going forward, we're gonna let them go a lot earlier. We'll
Right.
take profit, we'll rebuy a new option, and we'll just keep redoing the cycle. So that's something we're gonna really evaluate going forward.
Okay. Okay. And are you thinking about starting to make so we talked about this before where you were mentioning that your strategy going forward might be where when you solidify a position, you're going to choose an exit date and you're going to track that, or you're going to choose an exit amount and you're going to close that position once you reach one of those milestones, correct? Or is that
Yes.
different now? Okay.
No, I think that's the goal. So I think the exit date for sure. So Carnival Cruise Lines is gone February 1st, no matter what happens. We're gonna hold to that. That is
The
happening.
day.
Now, the return percentage. We are gonna set that. And that's gonna be a moving number though. So if we get up to 50%, maybe the number's 20%. If it drops down to 20%, we let it go. If it gets up to 70%, so as it moves, the number moves with it. But we don't move back down. So if our number is 20%, that's it. We don't go down to 10%. We sell at 20% profit and we move on.
Mhm.
But if our position keeps gaining in profitability, we keep moving that goalpost forward with it. That make sense?
Yep.
So we're gonna do a better job at that going forward. I think. Listen, Warren Buffett didn't know everything when he started investing. Neither do I. We're figuring it out, and we're gonna keep learning as we do this.
I'm not sure I appreciate the comparison of anyone on this channel to Warren Buffett. One second, I'm just checking my SoFi position real fast, which is really the viewer's position if you think about it, because they're going to get the profit from this contract.
You
Let's
should
see.
still be okay.
Well, you know what? I'm only down 12%. And so that's unfortunate because one of the lucky viewers is going to have to pay me 12%, I think is how that works.
I think you're gonna see SoFi rebound next year. But I think this is a good point to wrap it up. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Bull vs. Bear.
Thanks, guys.